People are so polarized these days. So many people are bewildered and incredulous of the other side. How could they believe that? How could they be so stupid? The only thing they ever do is lie. Half the country is insane. Half the country is stupid. Half the country is pure evil. They are so detached from reality. Is this true? Perhaps statistically, some of those statements could be true.
Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that.
Is that how the political parties are aligned? I don't think it's that simple. Wouldn't it be exceptionally easy to convince all those stupid people to your side? Why is it so hard for you to trick a stupid person to believe what you believe? Are people just thinking tribally? Not thinking at all? What's going on? Also, how do I make sure I'm not doing the same? Welcome to Contagiously Curious. A huge source of conflict, growing tensions, and a plethora of other problems are stemming from one thing, and then exacerbated by another. The source of the problem? Differing worldviews. The lenses through which individuals see the world is vastly different, and this leads to misunderstanding and subsequently miscommunication. What's making this worse? What's adding fuel to the fire? The media. The social media. Well, those are just tools. But it is the way we're communicating ideas, or rather, the goal of the communication. Specifically, that goal changing from being about trying to uncover the truth to trying to win, trying to go viral, to produce content that gains clicks, whether from clickbaiting, rage baiting, or any other kind of baiting. It's aptly named bait. It's not based in reality. It's no longer an attempt to search for truth. Let's begin with what a worldview is. While a quick search for a definition yields a particular philosophy of life or conception of the world, a comprehensive conception or apprehension of the world, especially from a specific standpoint. But you don't have to spend any time thinking and philosophizing about existence, morality, politics, etc. You have a worldview, regardless of the time you spend analyzing, questioning, and understanding it. It's a mix of everything, a bunch of spectrums on which everyone exists, but at varying levels. It's informed by and made up of all your experiences and thoughts, your religion and ethics. It's the lens through which you view the world, the way you make sense of anything and everything. All your preconceived notions, understanding of relationships, interactions, what's valuable, what's right and wrong, the reason we exist, our purpose in life, how things ought to be, and so on and so on. In his book, A Conflict of Visions, author Thomas Sowell discusses our sense of how the world works, or various sets of views. He refers to them as visions. He says, quote, "Visions are not mere emotional drives. On the contrary, they have a remarkable logical consistency, even if those devoted to these visions have seldom investigated that logic. Nor are visions confined to zealots and ideologues. We all have visions. They are the silent shapers of our thoughts. Visions may be moral, political, economic, religious, or social." End quote. People often unite around sets of views. Their views lead them to act, think, or behave in similar ways. In Chapter 1 of his book, A Conflict of Visions, Thomas Sowell identifies this phenomena. One of the curious things about political opinions is how often the same people line up on opposite sides of different issues. The issues themselves may have no intrinsic connection with each other. They may range from military spending, to drug laws, to monetary policy, to education. Yet the same familiar faces can be found glaring at each other from opposite sides of the political fence again and again. It happens too often to be coincidence, and it is too uncontrolled to be a plot. A closer look at the arguments on both sides often shows that they are reasoning from fundamentally different premises. These different premises, often implicit, are what provide the consistency behind the repeated opposition of individuals and groups on numerous unrelated issues. They have different visions of how the world works. It would be good to be able to say that we should dispense with visions entirely and deal only with reality. But that may be the most utopian vision of all. Reality is far too complex to be comprehended by any given mind. Visions are like maps that guide us through a tangle of bewildering complexities. Like maps, Visions have to leave out many concrete features in order to enable us to focus on a few key paths to our goals. Visions are indispensable, but dangerous, precisely to the extent that we confuse them with reality itself. What has been deliberately neglected may not in fact turn out to be negligible in its effect on the results. That has to be tested against evidence. Thomas Sowell wrote this book in 1987, and yet it feels as if he were writing about current events. How can two people look at the exact same set of facts and come to opposite conclusions? Is it stupidity? An inability to reason? Is it malice? Sheer contempt to spite the other side? While at first glance it certainly seems appealing to simply write off any individual who dares disagree with you as stupid or hateful, this is neither true nor helpful towards any end, except that of obtaining a feeling of superiority. I've heard people say, based on one sentence they can tell every political view another person has. There can be some truth to this, but it's an exaggeration. In reality, everyone has a unique perspective. You may try to label someone's set of beliefs: liberal, conservative, communist, fascist, socialist, Christian, Muslim, atheist. But individuals do not fit neatly in these boxes. Yes, there are plenty of people who do not do too much thinking, and if pressed, they will just agree with what they understand to be the majority consensus of whatever ideology they agree with most. But, in practical matters, individuals with the same group identity believe different things about the world, have different values, and take very different actions. You will never find someone who has the exact same thoughts as you about every single issue. We all have different experiences. We've been exposed to different sets of facts. Consider all the knowledge that could possibly exist in the universe, the answer to every single question. Let's imagine it as a circle. What percentage of that circle could we estimate that humankind has discovered? And we have to estimate, because of the unknown number of things we don't know that we don't know. Okay, now within that circle of all human knowledge, all the facts about individuals, their preferences and experiences, also consider the sum of all the expertise spanning every single subject matter. Now, how much of that knowledge do you currently possess? Is there any person who has the same amount of knowledge as you, no more, no less? That doesn't even begin to account for your vastly differing experiences. It's no wonder that each person has his own worldview. I don't know how many people would call themselves a postmodernist in the West today. Postmodern ideas are certainly permeating the culture. Much like how many people would not be self-proclaimed Christians, yet much of their worldview has been shaped by years of Christian philosophy, values, and beliefs. I'll be covering that topic more in depth in a future video. The idea of doubting what we can truly fully know, so everything must be objective and relative rather than objective, is coming from postmodern thought. A simplified version of the argument looks like this. An event can happen. Two people can interpret what this means in completely different ways and feel different emotions. Their feelings are real, but which one accurately interpreted reality? Did either of them get it 100%? Who's to say? And how could we possibly trust this arbiter's word, given that arbiter's own experiences, preferences, and emotions creating implicit biases? Postmodernists argue that due to the variety of lenses, languages, social norms, and power dynamics, no single perspective can claim to be the objective truth. Instead, there are multiple subjective viewpoints. Individual narratives reflect personal experiences, and postmodernism extends this idea to suggest that no grand, overarching narrative or explanation of the human experience can be definitively true. In essence, postmodernism argues that our interpretations of reality are constructed and subjective. Let's assume that we have no way to know anything with 100% certainty. Now, that's not the same as saying there is no objective reality, just saying it's kind of inaccessible. There's still a reality underneath our various interpretations. To claim that since we can never have 100% verification, so that means our ways of trying to get better understanding is meaningless, is a non sequitur if you ask me. I would say it's much more like horseshoes and hand grenades. Proximity matters. If only we had a way to test values. If only there was some kind of method to single out different variables and also have a control group to measure against. We could then have a method to create a best current guess. It'd be ideal if we could repeat this test and get the same results every or almost every time. That could serve as an indicator of which guess was better. Postmodern thinking is having a negative effect on society, and I think more people need to be able to challenge it, because our values and beliefs have real outcomes. Consider two farmers. One believes he needs to use nitrogen, fertilizer, irrigation, etc. The other believes that he just needs to put some sugary cereal out in the field, and that will make the rain come and the crops grow. If only there was an objective way to measure whose belief was closer to reality. Your actions have consequences. You are an agent, an actor.
I'm an actor. An actor!
When you take action, you affect change. That's exciting. The consequences are based on the actions, not based on the intentions. By the same token, your decisions have consequences, and it follows your values and ideas have effects on your life. It's not to say there aren't things outside of your control, just that you certainly do have some ability to affect change in your life. It goes beyond that, though. Let's look at an example of values. Take two kids in school. One values being the cool kid more than anything else. Every decision he makes will be toward that goal. The other just cares about his grade. Notice, it's not that he cares about being the smart kid, because that would be based on the perception of others. You wouldn't necessarily need the best grades or to actually be the smartest. You would just need the reputation of being the smart kid. The night before the final exam, someone gets the idea to throw a big party. The cool kid chooses to go party late into the night, doesn't study, doesn't get great sleep. But the grades kid, while he loses social points, stays home, studies a while, and gets a full night of sleep. Who do you predict would score better? Sure, in these kinds of situations, there are individuals who could be statistical outliers. But, by and large, you could accurately predict the results of the stated situation. But the stakes for other values can be far larger. There may be some that appear to have no effect on your life at all. Let's say, the belief in anything supernatural, belief in ghosts, belief in God, etc. Now, it's conceivable that you could believe something wrong, and benefit from it. A broken clock is right twice a day. If a belief matches up with reality, you should be able to see patterns emerge that can be used as evidence for one value or idea that matches up better than the others. This will apply to individuals making decisions about what to do in their own lives, and will also map onto beliefs about humanity in general. Patterns and evidence will emerge for and against differing theories. It's important to analyze and understand your beliefs and values if you want to make better decisions leading to better outcomes. Beyond that, if our goal is a more productive, functioning society, then we also ought to communicate our values with others. We should want to have the best values, to have the truth on our side, so we can respond accordingly and get the best outcome. Test different theories. Find which one is more true, which one better maps onto reality. The variety of beliefs and values makes life interesting. No two people are the same. It gives us more opportunities to weed out the worst ideas and keep the best. When people cooperate and work together, we can solve more problems. We are able to accomplish astonishingly great feats. It's an example where the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. We should want to create an environment where more problems can be solved, one that encourages and rewards cooperation. Yet, at the same time, having these differing worldviews is where all kinds of disagreements and confrontation comes from. If everyone has their own unique worldview, what that means is you literally disagree with everyone in the world. You just have to find the subject or subjects on which you differ. To gain the aforementioned positive possibilities of differing worldviews, we need to have both a good system for finding the best values and good communication to facilitate that. If we lack either of these, we see the historical pattern of miscommunication, conflict, and war, where those who disagree on a particular issue are dehumanized and then their destruction is sought. When it comes to communicating about our differing worldviews, I see two main pitfalls. One, we take shortcuts. It's something necessary. It's also the default action for humans. We don't have enough time to spend every day analyzing our worldview. Plenty of people have far more pressing matters to worry about first. Even if we all did have enough time, how many people would choose to spend their time that way? Plenty of people don't care, which is to say, they don't view it as important enough to warrant spending that amount of time pondering it. Furthermore, there is far too much information available. We literally can't know everything, so when we make decisions, we gather as much information as we can in the given time, determine which of that information is relevant, and make our choice. Otherwise, we react instinctively, relying on what we know, what we feel, and what we believe to be the truth. It's only natural to just go with your instinct. The people all around you have certain assumptions about how the world works, so you adopt them. Members of your community have certain beliefs and values related to answering the questions of what it takes to survive and thrive. If life seems to be working out fair enough for them, then why not adopt those same principles and values? You don't feel a need to examine them further. We don't always have time to take in all relevant data. Or we simply can't know all the relevant data. 2. We have misunderstandings. Point 2 might technically fit inside the first point, that we take shortcuts. We don't take the time to figure out and understand the other person's worldview, what set of facts they've been exposed to, what they think and feel about the matter at hand, and what they assume to be true when they make a statement. We shortcut the process and just assume certain points in regard to their worldview. Again, it's a necessary part of communication. We just need to recognize that everyone does this, and identify when there was a false assumption leading to a breakdown in communication. We take our most basic assumptions for granted. We don't even realize some of the things we assume, and we subsequently believe everyone thinks that way. So, when someone acts in a way opposite to how we expected them to, or to how we believe they ought to have behaved, the default gut reaction is not, oh, this person has a different underlying idea about how the world works. No, we think, this person is being selfish. They did this wrong thing because they don't care. We first assign a maliciousness or incompetence before considering a difference in worldviews. For a gut reaction, this is likely more valuable. We need to be aware of malicious or incompetent people for our own safety, but beyond the possibility of an immediate, present physical threat, it's more valuable to take the time to properly assess the source of the action or statement. Keeping these 2 pitfalls in mind, how can we avoid them? How do we make sure we are not possessed by groupthink? First, you need to understand your own worldview, yet also understand that you take shortcuts. In other words, have some humility. Recognize others take shortcuts, and they might not be aware of it. So, be patient with them. When you find you disagree with someone, identify the underlying premise you disagree on to communicate more effectively. And I will caveat this. This can only be done if the other person is actually willing to discuss. This is why honesty, sincerity, and a love of truth are so important. In the same vein, we need to be willing to let our ideas die. People attach their emotions to their ideas, and then hold on to them as if it's their own life. Their ideas about the world become their identity. People hate being wrong, especially if it's proven by someone they don't like. People are too prideful. Again, the antidote is humility, as well as having the common ground of wanting to seek the truth. Throughout history, we've had wars, but in the rational, post-Enlightenment current digital age, our ideas need to take our place and go to battle against each other, so that we can get rid of whatever is false. Hiding things or just trying to be louder are not acceptable solutions. Truth needs exposure. Lies need to be exposed. Free speech paired with good judgment are the antidote. We need a strong love for the truth. Thankfully, ideas can die instead of people. Get rid of a belief that is no longer useful. But just how exactly we determine if an idea has outlived its usefulness, well, that can be a bit of a challenge. I'll give you an example. A story with intentionally limited and chosen information. There's a small town that was settled long ago. There's a fence toward the outskirts of the town. The people don't really like the fence, don't like how it looks, it slows down trips to the nearby woods, yada yada yada. One person says, "Let's remove the fence. It has so many negative effects, I see no positive." The other responds, "Well, I assume the people before us had a good reason for putting up this fence. Let's figure out if it's still beneficial before removing it. We could unintentionally cause more harm than good." The first responds, "It's causing more harm than good now. If we remove it now, we have more time to enjoy the good we get from removing it." This is a caricature of the progressive versus conservative dichotomy. I'm not actually going to give a, well, this happened, so this side was right. Either person 1 was right, nothing bad happened, and it was better to remove the fence sooner. Or person 2 was right. The fence was actually keeping out dangerous wild animals that had learned the town was off limits, but rediscovered that there was prey there. Both situations and outcomes have existed throughout history. There are times where the first attitude and course of action turns out more beneficial, and times where the second is better. My goal in this oversimplified parable is simply to get people thinking. Consider others' worldviews. Understand the weak points in your own, and have some humility. I want to have this same general approach when covering many different topics, but I do also have my own opinions, and surprise, surprise, I think I'm right. In that fence analogy, the cautious side is probably wiser, considering the potential high stakes. But in a different situation, that caution towards change could lead to a worse outcome. I'd argue progressives and conservatives need each other. We need the differing worldviews. But what we don't need is tribal thinking. We need cooperation and communication. We need heaps and heaps of humility. And it's critical to understand your own worldview and assumptions so you can communicate them well and identify where a disagreement comes from. My suggestion is writing. Writing equals thinking. If you write out your ideas, you see your ideas on paper. It's an incredibly helpful exercise. It gives you a chance to reflect. It helps you articulate and understand your beliefs, and you have a chance to refine them. Thinking takes time. It requires vulnerability. You have to be open to the possibility that you're wrong, that you might have misunderstood something. There has to be some humility in your approach. To interact with others and find the best ideas, society needs to value truth and free speech. Shutting out dangerous ideas is itself a dangerous idea. We need to talk about what this idea assumes about the nature of humanity. If both truth and lies are exposed, which will win? I believe truth will win. It does not need the false help of censorship. That's why I believe exposure is the antidote to bad ideas. And free speech is that exposure. Video 2 in this series will cover communication in depth. We'll consider how social media is warping what is normal and acceptable in communication, and what we can do to individually and collectively foster better communication. Subscribe to the channel to be notified, and share some of your thoughts on worldviews below in the comment section. Help this channel grow. Expose more people to these ideas. Share your thoughts, reactions, and requests for future topics, and click like to bless this video in the algorithm. Now get off YouTube and do that thing you're procrastinating. Bye.